Hey guys, we're going to go ahead and continue on Chapter 11 with Section 2, which covers probability and Punnett squares. You've dealt with probability probably many times in your lives, in particular when you flip a coin. You have a 50-50 chance of flipping a heads or a tails because there's only two options. 1 out of 2 could be heads, 1 out of 2 could be tails, which is 50%. Now, maybe even if you play a card game, there are 52 cards in a deck. If you wanted to pull an ace, there are 4 aces in that deck, so you have approximately about an 8% chance of pulling an ace out of a full deck if you rounded up that percentage. So the chances that a particular event will happen is called probability, and we can use these principles to predict the outcomes of genetic crosses. We predict outcomes with genetic crosses with something called a Punnett square, and I have a picture of one down here at the bottom of the page. This is a Punnett square. You have your parents, or the alleles of each parent that could be passed on. So in this case, this parent is a hybrid, it's mixed. It's carrying the dominant allele and the recessive allele. And this parent is on the other side of the square, and they also are a hybrid. So the capital letters represent the dominant alleles, and the lowercase letters are going to represent the recessive alleles. Now there are a couple of terms, a few terms that you're going to need to be familiar with when we start talking about the outcomes or what occurs from a genetic cross. Homozygous is when you have 2 of the same letters. So in that last Punnett square, big G, or little g are both the same alleles, so they would each be homozygous or true breeding. One would be homozygous dominant, one would be homozygous recessive. The heterozygous version is the hybrid or the mixed version, where you have a capital letter and a lowercase letter, or a dominant allele and a recessive allele. Then the phenotype is what you actually outwardly see. So in our example yesterday, we were talking about tall plants versus short plants. So if you were going to have a tall plant, you'd either have to have the hybrid version, big T, little t, or big T, big T. The big T, or the big T, little t, those are the genotype, which is just a genetic makeup, but the phenotype, or the physical characteristic, was that person being notably tall, or that plant being tall versus short. Okay, so probabilities can predict the average outcome of a genetic cross. It doesn't mean, that that's necessarily going to happen for sure, but there's a pretty good chance. So it's just, again, it's a prediction, but it's a pretty good prediction, depending on the sample size that you have. The larger the number of offspring resulting from a cross, the closer the results will be to the expected values. So the way this works is, you got your father on one side, the alleles that can be given for a particular trait, and then the mother, again, on the other. It wouldn't matter if you put the father on the left-hand side or the mother on the top. It doesn't matter as long as you have the appropriate alleles. And the way this works, for each box, you're going to take and in this example, you got the big T from mom and a big T from dad that correspond in this square. So you end up with a homozygous dominant offspring, if this would be the egg that was passed on. Now, if you look over here in this square, you're getting big T from mom and little t from dad, and you end up with the hybrid or mixed version. Same thing happens in the third, or the bottom left square. And then the only other option you're left with is little t from mom and little t from dad. So this gives you your only homozygous recessive option. Now over here we have your ratios and your percentages of phenotype and then of the genotype. Actually, we have the percentages of the phenotype, which, remember, is the outward characteristic. So 75% of these offspring would have a chance of being tall. All right, because see, 3 out of 4 squares, 3 divided by 4 is 75%, are going to be tall. And then you have your 1 out of 4 squares, which would represent 25%, could be short. And then for your genotype, they're actually giving you a ratio here. The 1 goes along with the big T, or the homozygous dominant. There's 1 chance of homozygous dominance in this. And then you got the 2 here which is representative of the 2 hybrid versions that are possible. And then the last one is representative of the 1 homozygous recessive possibility for the genotype. So again, the genotype is this genetic makeup, these letters that we use to represent the alleles of the gene. Alright, and we are going to stop there today. Pretty short notes, but we need to do a lot of practice with these Punnett squares, so I will see you next time.